مغفرتك والنجاة من النار ومن كل بلية والفوز بالجنة والرضوان في دار السلام وجوار نبيك محمد عليه وآله السلام. اللهم ما بنا من نعمة فمنك، لا إله إلا أنت، أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.
اللهم
Inshallah, we'll begin with the recitation of the Akumil. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم إني أسألك برحمتك التي وسعت كل شيء وبقوتك التي قهرت بها كل شيء وخضع لها كل شيء وذل لها كل شيء. وبجبروتك التي غلبت بها كل شيء، وبعزتك التي لا يقوم لها شيء، وبعظمتك التي ملأت كل شيء، وبسلطانك الذي على كل شيء، وبوجهك الباقي بعد فناء كل شيء، وبأسمائك التي ملأت أركان كل شيء، وبعلمك الذي أحاط بكل شيء، وبنور وجهك الذي أضاء له كل شيء. يا نور يا قدوس، يا نور يا قدوس، يا نور يا قدوس، يا أول الأولين ويا آخر الآخرين. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تهتك العصام، اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل النقام، اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تغير النعام، اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تحبس الدعاء، اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل البلاء، اللهم اغفر لي كل ذنب أذنبته وكل خطيئة أخطأتها. اللهم إني أتقرب إليك بذكرك، واستشفع بك إلى نفسك، وأسألك بجودك أن تدنيني من قربك، وأن توزعني شكرك، وأن تلهمني ذكرك. اللهم إني أسألك سؤال خاضع متذلل خاشع، أن تسامحني وترحمني، وتجعلني بقسمك راضيا قانعا، وفي جميع الأحوال متواضعا. اللهم وأسألك سؤال من اشتدت فاقته، وأنزل بك عند الشدائد حاجته، وعظم فيما عندك رغبته. اللهم عظم سلطانك، وعلى مكانك، وخفي مكرك، وظهر أمرك، وغلب قهرك، وجرت قدرتك، ولا يمكن الفرار من حكومتك. اللهم لا أجد لذنوبي غافرا، ولا لقبائحي ساترا، ولا لشيء من عملي القبيح بالحسن مبدلا غيرك. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك وبحمدك. ظلمت نفسي، ظلمت نفسي، وتجرأت بجهلي، وسكنت إلى قديم ذكرك لي ومنك علي. اللهم مولاي، كم من قبيح سترته، وكم من فادح من البلاء أقلته، وكم من عثار وقيته، وكم من مكروه دفعته، وكم من ثناء جميل لست أهلا له نشرته. اللهم عظم بلائي وأفرط بي سوء حالي وقصرت بي أعمالي وقعدت بي أغلالي وحبسني عن نفعي بعد أملي وخدعتني الدنيا بغرورها ونفسي بجنايتها ومطالي يا سيدي فأسألك بعزتك ألا يحجب عنك دعائي سوء عملي وفعالي ولا تفضحني بخفي ما اطلعت عليه من سري ولا تعاجلني بالعقوبة على ما عملته في خلواتي من سوء فعلي وإساءتي ودوام تفريطي وجهالتي وكثرة شهواتي وغفلتي وكن اللهم بعزتك لي في كل الأحوال رؤوفا وعلي في جميع الأمور عطوفا إلهي وربي من لي غيرك أسأله كشف ضري والنظر في أمري إلهي ومولاي أجريت علي حكما اتبعت فيه هوى نفسي ولم أحترس فيه من تزيين عدوي فغرني بما أهوى وأسعده على ذلك القضاء فتجاوزت بما جرى علي من ذلك بعض حدودك وخالفت بعض أوامرك فلك الحمد علي في جميع ذلك ولا حجة لي فيما جرى علي فيه قضاؤك وألزمني حكمك وبلاؤك وقد أتيتك يا إلهي بعد تقصيري وإسرافي على نفسي معتذرا نادما منكسرا مستقيلا مستغفرا منيبا مقرا مذعنا معترفا فلا أجد مفرا مما كان مني ولا مفزعا أتوجه إليه في أمري غير قبولك عذري وإدخالك إياي في سعة رحمتك اللهم فاقبل عذري وارحم شدة ضري وفكني من شد وثاقي يا رب ارحم ضعف بدني يا رب ارحم ضعف بدني يا رب ارحم ضعف بدني ورقة جلدي ودقة عظمي يا من بدأ خلقي وذكري وتربيتي وبري وتغذيتي هبني لابتداء كرمك وسالفي برك بي يا إلهي وسيدي وربي أتراك معذبي بنارك بعد توحيدك وبعد من طوى عليه قلبي من معرفتك ولهج به لساني من ذكرك واعتقده ضميري من حبك وبعد صدق اعترافي ودعائي خاضعا لربوبيتك هيهات أنت أكرم من أن تضيع من ربيته أو تبعد من أدنيته أو تشرد من آويته أو تسلم إلى البلاء من كفيته ورحمته وليت شعري يا سيدي وإلهي ومولاي أتسلط النار على وجوه خرت لعظمتك ساجدة، وعلى ألسن نطقت بتوحيدك صادقة، وبشكرك مادحة، وعلى قلوب اعترفت بإلهيتك محققة، وعلى ضمائر حوت من العلم بك حتى صارت خاشعة، وعلى جوارح سعت إلى أوطان تعبدك طائعة، وأشارت باستغفارك مذعنة. ما هكذا الظن بك، ولا أخبرنا بفضلك عنك يا كريم يا رب، يا كريم يا رب، يا كريم. وأنت تعلم ضعفي عن قليل من بلاء الدنيا وعقوباتها، وما يجري فيها من المكاره على أهلها، على أن ذلك بلاء ومكروه قليل مكثوه، يسير بقاؤه، قصير مدته. فكيف احتمالي لبلاء الآخرة وجليل وقوع المكاره فيها، وهو بلاء تطول مدته ويدوم مقامه، ولا يخفف عن أهله، لأنه لا يكون إلا عن غضبك وانتقامك وسخطك. وهذا ما لا تقوم له السماوات والأرض يا سيدي، فكيف لي وأنا عبدك الضعيف الذليل الحقير المسكين المستكين. يا إلهي وربي وسيدي ومولاي، لأي الأمور إليك أشكو، ولما منها أضج وأبكي، لأليم العذاب وشدته أم لطول البلاء ومدته؟ فلئن صيرتني للعقوبات مع أعدائك، وجمعت بيني وبين أهل بلائك، وفرقت بيني وبين أحبائك وأوليائك، فهبني يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي وربي. صبرت على عذابك، فكيف أصبر على فراقك؟ وهبني صبرت على حر نارك، فكيف أصبر عن النظر إلى كرامتك؟ أم كيف أسكن في النار ورجائي عفوك؟ فبعزتك يا سيدي ومولاي أقسم صادقا، لئن تركتني ناطقا لأضجن إليك بين أهلها ضجيج الآملين، ولأصرخن إليك صراخ المستصرخين، ولأبكين عليك بكاء الفاقدين، ولأنادينك أين كنت يا ولي المؤمنين، يا غاية آمال العارفين، يا غياث يا غياث يا غياث Again together. يا غياث المستغيثين، يا غياث المستغيثين، يا غياث المستغيثين، يا حبيب قلوب الصادقين،
ويا إله العالمين، أفتراك سبحانك يا إلهي وبحمدك تسمع فيها صوت عبد مسلم سجن فيها بمخالفته وذاق طعم عذابها بمعصيته وحبس بين أطباقها بجرمه وجريرته، وهو يضج إليك ضجيج مؤمل لرحمتك ويناديك بلسان أهل توحيدك ويتوسل إليك بربوبيتك يا مولاي. فكيف يبقى في العذاب وهو يرجو ما سلف من حلمك؟ أم كيف تؤلمه النار وهو يأمل فضلك ورحمتك؟ أم كيف يحرقه لهيبها وأنت تسمع صوته وترى مكانه؟ أم كيف يشتمل عليه زفيرها وأنت تعلم ضعفه؟ أم كيف يتقلقل بين أطباقها وأنت تعلم صدقه؟ أم كيف تزجره زبانيتها وهو يناديك يا ربه؟ أم كيف يرجو فضلك في عتقه منها فتتركه فيها؟ هيهات، ما ذلك الظن بك ولا المعروف من فضلك ولا مشبه لما عملت به الموحدين من برك وإحسانك. فباليقين أقطع لولا ما حكمت به من تعذيب جاحديك وقضيت به من إخلاد معانديك لجعلت النار كلها بردا وسلاما وما كانت لأحد فيها مقرا ولا مقاما. لكنك تقدست أسماؤك أقسمت أن تملأها من الكافرين من الجنة والناس أجمعين وأن تخلد فيها المعاندين. وأنت جل ثناؤك قلت مبتدئا وتطولت بالإنعام متكرما. أفمن كان مؤمنا كمن كان فاسقا لا يستوون. إلهي وسيدي، فأسألك بالقدرة التي قدرتها وبالقضية التي حتمتها وحكمتها وغلبت من عليه أجريتها أن تهب لي في هذه الليلة وفي هذه الساعة كل جرم أجرمته وكل ذنب أذنبته وكل قبيح أسررته وكل جهل عملته كهتمته أو أعلنته أخفيته أو أظهرته وكل سيئة أمرت بإثباتها الكرام الكاتبين الذين وكلتهم بحفظ ما يكون مني وجعلتهم شهودا علي مع جوارحي. وكنت أنت الرقيب علي من ورائهم والشاهدي لما خفي عنهم وبرحمتك أخفيته وبفضلك سترته وأن توفر حظي من كل خير تنزله أو إحسان تفضله أو بر تنشره أو رزق تبسطه أو ذنب تغفره أو خطأ تستره يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي ومالك رقي يا من بيده ناصيتي يا عليما بضري ومسكنتي يا خبيرا بفقري وفاقتي يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا رب. أسألك بحقك وقدسك وأعظم صفاتك وأسمائك أن تجعل أوقاتي في الليل والنهار بذكرك معمورة وبخدمتك موصولة وأعمالي عندك مقبولة، حتى تكون أعمالي وأورادي كلها وردا واحدا، وحالي في خدمتك سرمدا. يا سيدي يا من عليه معولي، يا من إليه شكوت أحوالي، يا ربي يا ربي يا رب.
يا ربي يا ربي يا رب.
يا ربي يا ربي يا رب. قو على خدمتك جوارحي واشدد على العزيمة جوانحي، وهب لي الجد في خشيتك والدوام في اتصاله بخدمتك، حتى أصرح إليك في الميادين السابقين وأسرع إليك في المبادرين، وأشتاق إلى قربك في المشتاقين، وأدنو منك دنو المخلصين، وأخافك مخافة الموقنين، وأجتمع في جوارك مع المؤمنين. اللهم ومن أرادني بسوء فأرد، ومن كادني فكد، واجعلني من أحسن عبيدك نصيبا عندك، وأقربهم منزلة منك، وأخصهم زلفة لديك، فإنه لا ينال ذلك إلا بفضلك، وجد لي بجودك، واعطف علي بمجدك، واحفظني برحمتك، واجعل لساني بذكرك لهجا، وقلبي بحبك متيما، ومن علي بحسن إجابتك، وأقلني عثرتي، واغفر لي زلتي، فإنك قضيت على عبادك بعبادتك، وأمرتهم بدعائك، وضمنت لهم الإجابة، فإليك يا ربي نصبت وجهي، وإليك يا ربي مددت يدي، فبعزتك استجب لي دعائي، وبلغني مناي، ولا تقطع من فضلك رجائي، واكفني شر الجن والإنس من أعدائي. يا سريع الرضا يا سريع الرضا يا سريع الرضا، اغفر لمن لا يملك إلا الدعاء، فإنك فعال لما تشاء. يا من اسمه دواء وذكره شفاء وطاعته غنى، ارحم من رأس ماله الرجاء وسلاحه البكاء. يا سابغ النعام يا دافع النقام، يا نور المستوحشين في الظلام، يا عالما لا يعلم، صل على محمد وآل محمد، وافعل بي ما أنت أهله، وصلى الله على رسوله والأئمة الميامين من آله، وسلم تسليما كثيرا. اللهم صل على محمد. جزاك الله خير. Before we begin tonight's Ijtihad and Taqleed session, inshallah, please recite a Surah Al-Fatiha for the marhumin of the Ummah, your marhumin, the marhumin of our community. Allahumma arham shuhada Falastin. Surah Al-Fatiha. Bismillah.
If you can follow the slides on your phones, that would be good, inshallah, tonight. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجه. Okay, so we were talking about the sunnah, and we said that the sunnah of the Prophet and the Imams is reflected in the hadiths that we have. And these hadiths were scattered all over the place in the Usul Arba'mi'ah. And so we had the first three Muhammads, their names were, to come and make these collections of theirs, these primary collections, namely Al-Kafi, Man La Yahtur Al-Faqih, Al-Istibsar, and Tahdhib. All right, so these are our main works now. Then you have about, let's see here, how many years later? We go to, those were in the 3rd or 4th and 5th century, that those books that were compiled. Then you go all the way till the 10th and 11th, or 11th and 12th century. And you have there another three Muhammads. Okay, now these three Muhammads, who are Muhammad Muhsin Fayd al-Kashani, and then you have Muhammad bin Hassan al-Hur al-Amili, and then you have Muhammad Baqir al-Majlisi. So these are the three later Muhammads. What they did now is that they saw that their predecessors, they did a lot of good work and brought together these compilations and collections of hadith that they had. They thought now, 5-6 centuries later, that it's not a bad idea to make encyclopedias out of this raw information. So if I want to say it like this, I'll say you have raw Usul Arba'mi'ah. Those notebooks, remember, that Al-Kafi used and brought as much as he could into those, into his book from those Usul Arba'mi'ah, right? That's like the raw information from those notebooks. Then you have a raw Al-Kafi, which is, at the end of the day, it's a book that's based on those Usul Arba'mi'ah. Raw in the sense that 500-600 years later, who comes along? These three Muhammads, the later three Muhammads. They come and they write their books now. What do? They're like, look, we have Al-Kafi, we have Istibsar, we have Tahdhib, we have Faqih. We have these 4 books, right? But when I look into these books, when I'm trying to find an issue, a ruling on an issue, I have to go into each of these 4 books. They don't have the same chapters, titles, and so I have to go out of my way, really work hard to find what I'm looking for. Why not, now that they've done the hard work, those first 3 Muhammads, they've done the hard work of bringing together their books, Al-Kafi and the other ones. Why not now we bring together these 4 main books into one big encyclopedia? That's what they want to do now, okay? So the first of them who did that, his name is Mullah Muhsin Fayd al-Kashani. Now these books that we talk about, so far we've talked about 4, this is our 5th one now. These are the books that, like, come on, every Shia should know these ones, right? This one, number 5, that Mullah Muhsin Fayd Kashani compiled and put together is called Al-Wafi. So let's talk about that. In the beginning, in the preface, he says, this book comprises of verses of the Quran and all of the hadiths contained within our 4 main books. So you see, from here onwards, if anyone's going to do anything, it's based on those 4 books. That's it. That's all we've got, people. Okay? And if anyone does anything, they're going to work on that. You know what it's like? Okay, this is a very bad example. But you have NFL, right? Okay? The NFL, something happens there, they play their games, right? Then you have a whole bunch of other programs that they have on TV and stuff where they'll come and analyze these games. One thing is actually happening, it's the games. But then you have all these programs that have this opportunity to be aired. Why? Because they're based on, and they're a layer on top of NFL games. What's another layer on top of NFL games? Fantasy football. What's another thing? You can think of 10, let's call it products that are based on the NFL game. But the real deal is the NFL game. Without it, none of these other products will exist, right? All the different things that are going on. Video games that are based on NFL, and so on and so forth. You have 4 books of Al-Kafi, Tahdhib, Man La Yahtur, these ones. From here on, anyone who does anything is going to be based on these 4 books. The first work that's done on these 4 is in the 11th century, 10th and 11th, or 11th and 12th centuries, which is Fayd al-Kashani is the first one. Al-Wafi, he calls his book. What does he do? He says, I have contained within it our 4 main books that everything revolves around these days. So think about it, 11th century, yeah, Fayd is saying that everyone goes to these 4 books only. That's all we've got. Namely, Al-Kafi, Al-Faqih, Tahdhib, Istibsar. What pushed me to compile this book was how the 4 books fall short of being sufficient. Their disability to live up to transmitting the guidance provided by hadiths and the difficulty of referring to all 4 when you're looking for something, because everything's all over the place. At the end of the day, yeah, Al-Kafi within itself is coherent, but when I wanted to find something in Kafi and at the same time find it in the other ones, then I have to go look around different chapters and it gets hard. He says, I want to consolidate all of this. I want to bring it all together. Okay? So Al-Wafi is written. Let's talk about it a little bit on the next slide. It says that, as we said, it contains all the hadiths of the 4 books, including Usul al-Kafi. So it's interesting because the next collection we talk about, which is Wasa'il al-Shia, isn't going to be like this. But Al-Wafi is like this. He says, I brought all 4 books. Well, guess what? In these 4 books, we have Al-Kafi that has a Usul section, which was all beliefs. It had nothing to do with fiqh and ahkam, right? He says, I'm going to bring even that into my Al-Wafi. So it looks like Mullah Muhsin Fayd, his goal isn't to just have a fiqhi encyclopedia. He wants a book that has all of the hadith of all 4 main hadith books. Well, in Al-Kafi, you have Usul al-Kafi. He says, I'm going to bring those as well. And then he explains them as well. So he says that I'm going to be saving you from the trouble of referring to the 4 books separately. I explained why what the problem was there. He has explanations and commentary on hadiths and brings other hadiths for this purpose as well. So he'll come across a hadith that needs explanation, he'll explain it, and he'll bring other hadiths that explain that hadith. And that's why they say his book has 50,000 hadiths in it. Remember, Usul al-Kafi was like 16,000. Yeah? If you put all of these 4 books together, it's not going to reach 50,000. Apparently, they've counted the other hadiths he's also brought in to explain the hadiths of the 4 books. But he's saying, look, I'm stressing on this because later on we're going to have a different approach when it comes to other books. His approach is only these 4 books. That's it. Whatever's in these 4 books, I'm just bringing them together. And I'm going to explain some of them. He defines the hard terms, and some have said that a separate book can be made out of this itself. This is valuable. His notes on some of the hard terminology that you have in these 4 books of hadith. He's omitted the repetitive hadith. So you'll find one, several places, several books maybe. He's consolidated it into one. He has given the hadith's order versus being spread out. Right? So when you look into this encyclopedia of his, that's what I call it. Instead of collection, I'll call it encyclopedia because it's a collection of the collections we have. When you look into there, you'll find that a lot of the titles kind of match with Al-Kafi's titles of his chapters. Okay? But he has made little bits of changes here and there to the titles as well. For example, I noticed right from the beginning, Al-Kafi has Kitab al-Aqli wal-Jahl. His is called Kitab al-Aqli wal-Ilm or something like that. So he has made some little changes, but all in all, you'll find that that's the pattern. Al-Kafi, usually, those titles are there. Once again, I'm stressing on this because we're going to move on to Wasa'il. You'll see he has a different approach. The next encyclopedia we get to. Yeah. No, they might be from some other places, not necessarily just in the 4 books, in my opinion. I haven't checked though. Either one of the other 3 books, or maybe even from outside. But as the 4. So the books, the hadiths that he brings in his book, those are only from the 4. But when he's adding his own notes, in his notes he might reference other hadiths that might not even be in these 4 books. But I haven't done a comprehensive study into this. This is my guess. I think that it's most likely that not all of the hadiths that he's brought in explanation of the main hadiths of the encyclopedia, those are from the 4 books, not necessarily. Because if you add up all of the hadiths of the 4 books, I don't think they reach 50,000. I'm 100% sure they don't reach 50. So it's obvious that he's bringing them from other places as well. But those don't count as al-wafi. Those are his notes on al-wafi. Yeah? Yes, they are. Well, it depends on your definition of authentic. The question is, anything outside of these 4 sources, is it authentic or not? Yeah? Is it considered authentic or not? Well, it depends on your definition of authentic. There is the old school type of definition of authentic, which says, look, if it's in an authentic book that we know it has pedaru madar, right? We know where it goes back to, then yeah, it's authentic. And we'll get to Wasa'il al-Shia, we'll talk about this more. But in the later definition of sahih and authentic was what? If the chain of narrators is sahih. So these people in that time, especially the likes of al-Wafi and Wasa'il al-Shia that we'll get to in a minute, they were more akhbari especially. And so they were like, look, if it's in a book that we know goes back to so-and-so, for us it's authentic. Yeah. Okay, so yeah. Next point is that he has spread out the Rawda of Al-Kafi across different chapters as well. But this was interesting to me. If you remember, we have Al-Kafi's 8 volumes. The first 2 volumes are Usul Al-Kafi. The next 5 volumes were Furu' Al-Kafi. The last one was Rawdatul Kafi. And that, in other words, they'll call it just the miscellaneous volume, where Kulaini, he'll bring hadiths that he felt were interesting, stories and accounts that he felt were interesting. Might not be the most reliable of hadiths, but they're there. So he brings them. But it's miscellaneous. They don't fall under, you can't really categorize them. Okay, so topic-wise, they're all over the place. All right, what brings them together is the fact that you can't bring them together, that they are miscellaneous. And so what Mullah Muhsin Faid al-Kashani has done in his Al-Wafi is that he's taken that, cut it up, taken each of these hadiths and put it under certain titles of previous chapters, fit them under other chapters that he felt they can go under. So that's also an interesting thing that he's done. Yeah. He completes the chain of narrators as well, in Al-Wafi. If you remember, Al-Kafi brings the full hadith chain of narrators. But the other ones like Al-Faqih and Tahdib, they don't. If you remember, they had the Mashikha section. All right? He says, no, I'm going to bring them all back, which helps to an extent. But I'm pretty sure they'll make some mistakes there. He'll make some mistakes when he's actually filling those gaps. What he does also is that he doesn't cut up hadith, he brings the entire hadith. No taqti' is called. Why do I say this? Because when we go to Wasa'il al-Shia, that's what he does, and it's a problem sometimes. So this is Al-Wafi, maybe the first of its kind, an encyclopedia containing only the 4 main hadith books that we have, all of it, not just the fiqhi parts, and him having notes as well and explaining certain things and bringing other hadiths in those notes as well. This is Al-Wafi, maybe the first of its kind. Then you have, when we look into this list of hadith collections, after Al-Wafi, you will have Shaykh Hur al-Amili, Muhammad bin Hassan bin Ali al-Hur al-Amili, which is also one of the most famous of our scholars of that era. And for those of you who've been to Mashhad, he's buried in that very nice sahn of Imam al-Rida across from the dome. There's a few steps that goes down and then you can see, inshallah, we can go one day. Anyway, this Hur al-Amili, Shaykh Hur al-Amili, is huge. And I will explain why. He's written Wasa'il al-Shia. So if you can see on that list, it says Kashani, he passed away 1090 Hijrah, after Hijrah. Hur al-Amili passes away a little bit after that. Yeah, 14 years later. And so he also comes up with the same idea. Now, I didn't bring a part of his preface in here, but he says the same things that Fayd al-Kashani says. He says, look, when you go, there's missing parts in these different 4 books of ours. There's things that they should have brought, they didn't bring. There's things that go against each other. There's things that need explanation. They're scattered. If I want to find something in all 4, I have to go in different places and look in all of them. It's hard. it sounds like, everyone was dealing with the same problems. Now, he's a contemporary, I would say, of Faith al-Kashani. Did he know Kashani has written Al-Wafi or not? I don't know. I tried to find that, I couldn't. Has he seen Al-Wafi? When was Al-Wafi exactly compiled versus his book? I don't know. I wasn't able to find it. And so we'll leave that for later, inshallah, if I come across anything. But we have this Wasa'ilu Shia. It has a longer title, but that's the part you need to know. Wasa'ilu Shia. This, brothers and sisters, is the go-to book. You see it in capital letters. The go-to book for advanced fiqh circles today. All right? If you go to Qom and Najaf and all these places, yeah, when the grand scholar comes in to teach, he's probably holding a couple of those volumes. Yeah, or he's citing from from this book. This is it. This is it. This is the book, everybody. Wasa'ilu Shia. Okay? Now, you'll see what sets it apart from Al-Wafi, although they're after the same goal, but there are some things that he's done that Al-Wafi has not done. First of all, it's only fiqh. No aqa'id, no usul, none of that stuff. Yeah? Just from najasa, tahara, all the way till the end. Okay? About 35,850 here, it says. Now, one of the prints is 20 volumes, one of them is 30 volumes, and they're doing more and more work on these kinds of books. The reason why there's a difference between volumes, sometimes there's more research that's been done, more footnotes. Sometimes it's just the print that's different. All right, so it is based on the book of Shara'i al-Islam. You see, sometimes you just write a hadith book, all right, based on, like Al-Wafi was mostly based on Al-Kafi's table of contents, kind of. But here, what he's done is, he's gone to one of the main books that we have of fiqh, which is the book of Allama Hilli, or Al-Muhaqqiq al-Hilli, called Shara'i al-Islam. This is a very, very important fiqh book that we have. Like till today, it's used in certain contexts for the basis of certain rules and laws that we might have. Okay, so Shara'i al-Islam of Muhaqqiq Hilli. What he's done now, Shaykh Hur Amili, is taken that fiqh book, and he's like, let me see how you go through fiqh, and as I go through each of these masail that you're explaining, I'm going to bring the hadiths for it. So a person, when they want to find the hadiths regarding a certain mas'ala, an issue, what do? If they can't find it in wasail, they'll go look in, what's it called, in Sharia. They'll be like, okay, this is where it's discussed. They go and open up wasail based on that. So it makes things a lot easier. So it gives you a lot of accessibility. It eases that accessibility for you, for a person who wants to do that kind of work. Right away, boom, a big gap between Al-Wafi and wasail. It makes it so much easier for a faqih, for a jurist, to be able to find what they're after. That's what they need. They want to be able to find what they need as soon as they can. No time wasted. So wasail becomes the go-to book. A very logical organization of the book's chapters, sub-chapters. So you have the book of Tahara, the chapter of, the mutahirat, those things that make other things pure. And then sub-chapter to that, mutahirat, you'll have water, you'll have sun, you'll have this, you'll have that. And so sometimes you'll have more than 100 sub-chapters under one chapter. Okay, so that's very extensive. So he's really broken things down. So you don't have to waste your time. Just if you're looking for something, for example, you're not going to have to go under al-mutahirat, those things that the purifiers, and then go under water. But water has like 500 masail under it, and all these hadiths that you have to comb through to find what you're after. No, under water it'll have 50 other sub-chapters. Some of these sub-chapters might have up to like 50 hadiths. Some might have just one. But since he can give it a title, he'll give it a title and make a sub-chapter for it. So very organized. Now, when he is going by this organization and this sequence of things, what titles is he going to be selecting now? It says the title of each chapter is his own fatwa. So when you open up his book, it says the chapter of this thing being mustahab, the chapter of this thing being makruh, the chapter of the permissibility of this, the chapter of permissibility of that. That's not what the chapter is saying. This is your ijtihad, Shaykh Hur Amili. Yeah, that is one kind of downside to it, but there's no choice. There's no way out of this. He will give his opinion in the title. It doesn't necessarily mean, and this is where some people, unfortunately, who are anti-ijtihad, anti-taqleed, they're like, what's the big deal? We have these hadith books. It says it right here. regarding the permissibility of this, the impermissibility of that, and so on. That's Shaykh Hur Amili's title. It's not part of the hadith. That's his opinion on the matter. Okay, so that's his real. In reality, those are his fatwas. If you want to know what his fatwas are, just look at the titles that he has for the chapters and subchapters. And what else has he done? He has brought the stronger hadiths first. So if you look at hadith number 1 versus hadith number 10, you'll find that hadith number 1 is usually stronger than, if not always stronger than, hadith number 10 that he brings. All right, what else does he do? He chooses one of multiple similar hadiths and cites the sanad for the rest. So he'll have a hadith, and you'll know there's like 3 or 4 similar ones to this. So he'll say, there are other hadiths like this one here, 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 and here. He won't repeat the hadith anymore, but it's not like he won't say it either. He'll say, look, there's more of this here, here, and here. Because look, at the end of the day, a faqih, what they're going to do is, if there's a little bit of different wording, maybe there's context that's going to help them, they will look at those other ones as well. Just because they're similar doesn't mean they're identical in their wording. Yeah, sometimes a word here or there might make a big difference in the final opinion or lack thereof for a mujtahid. What else does he do? He will reconcile the conflicting hadiths in a chapter. Now, here it was interesting because it says that he mostly copy-pastes what tahdib and istibsar do. We talked about this before. Tahdib and istibsar, one of the main things that they do is they will reconcile conflicting hadiths. So he's like, why reinvent the wheel? He'll just use those, but there might be cases where he will offer his own reconciliation as well. Now, one thing that stands out about this one, in a maybe not so good way sometimes, is the fact that wasa'il has taqti' in it. Taqti' comes from qit'a, which means to make things into pieces, to make something into pieces. He has cut up lots of times these hadiths that are a little bit longer. He's like, you know what, why bring the whole hadith? This part of it is what is relevant to this subchapter, so I'll just bring this part of it. The thing is that this has caused lots of times for context to be lost. And qara'in and context clues, to go missing. And so then these people have to go and try to find the hadith in its entirety and all that, and they have to spend, it defeats the purpose. They were trying to save time with wasa'il al-Shia, but now they're spending more time. And so there are others who have come later and have kind of undone what Wasa'il has done, and they've done their own work and other work. But they're not there in later centuries, not in these centuries. At the end of every chapter, he also explains how there are other hadiths that might be helpful in previous or ensuing chapters. So he'll say, you see this hadith here? Something's going to come a few pages later that's going to also be helpful here. I'll just bring it right here then. Why cut it up, Because sometimes it might be from the same hadith even. Why cut it up? You find this a lot in Nahj al-Balagha as well, although these are not related too much. Nahj al-Balagha is a different topic. It's not fiqh or anything, but Nahj al-Balagha is all cut up, man. It is all cut up. If you look at the original, and then you look at the Nahj al-Balagha that we have, the original khutbahs are, sometimes there's a lot of overlap. And he's cut them up into different khutbahs, and you would think that they're different. They've been mentioned in different occasions, but it's not the case necessarily. Here also, in Wasa'il, he's done that. So it doesn't help too much. He's trying to save time for us, but sometimes that'll backfire. All right, and finally, last slide. He says, unlike Al-Wafi, which said, I'm going to only use the 4 main books that we have, he's like, no, we have more authentic books. Remember you asked, what's authentic? He says, we have a bunch more authentic books. I'm going to bring from the 13 of Shaykh al-Saduq's books, not just Man La Yahdur al-Faqih, 13 other ones. I'm going to use this book. I'm going to use like one of the books he uses. He says I'm going to use is Nahj al-Balagha actually. It's interesting. And so he'll have a bunch of other books. How many are they? One place they had written 70 other books. Another place I read it said 82. Another place said 180. They were quoting someone by the name of Shia. 180 other books that he's used, and so he'll say it when he brings that hadith. He'll say, there's a hadith here, and then it says Basair al-Darajat, for example. This is where I got it from. He says, I got it from that book. So it's not just the 4. Majority of the hadiths that we have in Wasa'il al-Shia, what are they? From the 4 main books. But he's used a lot of these other ones as well. He says, look, I'm going to use, not just any book though, if it's a reliable, authentic book. Because we're going to get to Bihar al-Anwar later, and how he's done it. Does he necessarily go to only authentic sources? What does he say exactly? Let's see what he says there. What's for sure is Wasa'il is more strict than Bihar. So yeah, it says most hadiths are from the three Muhammads, he says. Those three, Al-Kafi and Tahdhib and all of those. He mentions the entire chain of narrators as well, unlike Tusi and Saduq. That helps. He brings all similar hadiths next to each other, which helps to change the Mursal hadith to Musnad ones. I don't want to explain this one too much, it's a little technical. And as I said, he does not bring any aqaid or anything not related to fiqh, only hadiths and no fiqhi Quranic verses either. So he puts aside anything that is non-fiqhi, and he also puts aside fiqhi verses of Quran. Fayd Kashani in his Wafi, he brings verses of the Quran in the beginning, then he goes to the hadiths. But as a proper akhbari would do, what does Shaykh Hur Amili say? He says, I'm not going to bring any verses of the Quran. Now, is it because of his akhbarism or is it for other reasons? I don't know. But he doesn't bring verses of the Quran, even if they're fiqhi verses of the Quran. He doesn't bring them in Wasail al-Shia. And what's interesting is that he's gone over this work of his 3 times. Now, in the wording that I saw, it said that he's rewritten it 3 times. But I'm just going to say he revised it 3 times. Over 18 to 20 years he spent on this book. And when you read the preface of it, he's like, I want to do something that's going to help the ummah. I want to do something that's going to keep giving me thawab till my forever, and others can benefit from. And look at this man. He, when was this? 11th century or 12th century, early 12th century, he passed away. His book is being used by thousands and thousands and thousands of the ulama and Hawza students till today. Yeah, one work that he's done. Yeah, so I don't even know if it was how well it was received back in his day. It probably was well received because he was living in a good time for the Shia, where the Shia were thriving under the Safavid rule. But all in all, yeah, you never know. You never know. You might write a Wasa'il al-Shia, and then all of a sudden everyone's using it forever. Yeah. Al-Wafi, on the other hand, Al-Wafi is not used so much. You won't go to a dars, and then the ustad says, all right, let's open up Al-Wafi. No, nowadays, it's, as I said, the go-to book is Wasa'il al-Shia. Anything you need, you can find there. But other books might not have as much as he does. But yeah, he has less hadiths than Al-Wafi. 35,000 versus 50,000. But as I said, they're probably counting the ones that he brings in his notes as well. Yeah, so Wasa'il is that book that we go to today. Now, that leaves us with Bihar al-Anwar. And that itself needs its own, inshallah, session that we'll have. In regards to that, obviously, Bihar, there's a lot to talk about in regards to it. It's not just a fiqh book. There's a lot of other things in there as well, and the methodology and the approach that he had there is a little bit different, inshallah. So we'll leave that for our next session. Walhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Any questions? Yeah. What's that? Why didn't Tusi and Saduq bring all the chains, right before the? Because look, once you get bored, if you're writing a book and then you have 50 hadiths with the same chain, and you keep just repeating them, that book gets dense, yeah. And so they want to save time, so they're like, look, people, from now on, whenever I am narrating from Hassan bin Fulan, right, Hussein bin Sa'id, for example, this is my chain to Hussein bin Sa'id. Okay, I got it from A, from B, from C, from D, who got it from Hussein bin Sa'id, who got it from this Imam. So from now on, people, I'm going to say Hussein bin Sa'id said that Imam Sadiq said this. Where's the connection between me and Hussein bin Sa'id? There's 600 years between us, 1,000 years between us, whatever. Yeah, well, I'll mention it in the end of my book, and I'll call it the Mashikha or the Mashikha. These are my sheikhs, my teachers that I got it from. Yeah, so instead of repeating a chain of narrators 50 times for one individual, he just says it once in the end. Yeah. The problem with that was that lots of times there's mistakes. Yeah. And so, yeah. Or here, Wasail al-Shia, he does taqdi'. He cuts pieces out and just brings the relevant parts to the topic. Well, yeah, he's trying to save space, save time, but then it backfires sometimes as well. And so we have issues there, unfortunately. But yeah, there's lots of work that's been done in that regard. Yeah. Has he changed his mind over these 3 revisions that he's had? Most probably, but do we have access to his previous ones? I'm not sure. I think that the one that we have is that final one, I guess. And I don't remember seeing in footnotes ever where it says, oh, this is his rule here, but he had a different view before this. I've never seen that. Yeah, so, but I have to look into that a little bit more. They don't talk too much about his previous versions. Yeah. Anything else before we end? Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Salawat. Allahumma salli ala السلام عليك يا رسول الله السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين السلام على الحسن والحسين سيدي شباب أهل الجنة السلام على 9 المعصومين من ولد الحسين السلام عليك يا مولانا يا صاحب الزمان عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله تعالى مخرجك وظهورك السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته